Welcome to Tesla, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man. So, just to let you guys know, this is not going to be like a full or even a light analysis video. So, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get on. I'm not going to do the entire game, but there are a lot of important points that Hans Niemann mentioned in both of his interviews after round 3, after round 5. And so I figured I'd do a little bit of clarification on some of the stuff he means. Now, learning about Hans Niemann pretty recently watching his interviews and things like that and kind of reading a little bit about him, we are like almost identical when it comes to chess, like the way the way he works, the way I work on it. So I can identify with him fairly well. Me and him are both like unorthodox type of learners. There's kind of like a certain way that a lot of people feel like you need to learn chess. And I definitely don't do it that way. But anyways, for all my people that are coming from the Philippines, as always, I would say mabuhay. Kumusta na aking makaibigan. Anybody who is coming from Norway, I will say God morgen. Tusen tak to you. It is pretty early over there for you. Yeah. So if you guys are ready to go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is this. So the first question that everybody's been literally talking about since, we first literally came out with all of this stuff that just happened. Was that, everybody was like, hey, man, like he said that there was this variation that Magnus Carlsen played, but he never played it before. I can't find it in no databases, right? Well, this is the thing. He was 1 year off of that. And the position doesn't look identical to the position that they mentioned like right at that point in the interview. So the game that he was referring to, Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley So, it wasn't from the London Chess Classic of 2018. It was from Tata Steel in 2019. But he remembered the Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley So. So just kind of taking a look at that game right quick. We got, all these moves and stuff like that. We get into this position here. This is the position that Hans Niemann was thinking about in his mind when he was mentioning that. Like I said, he just got the year and the event wrong, which is highly understandable because if you're looking at a database with thousands and tens of thousands of games in it, the lines are like really close together. So you're going to be kind of mixing up dates and, stuff like that, unless you spend like an insane amount of time on one particular game. But, a lot of it is just trying to run through, trying to get, the important parts of the opening and stuff learned, and then so you get to your files and things like that. So like I said, this was what was in his head. So I wanted to show you a little bit later in this game because it will become relevant when I switch over. I have the game from round 3 on the other screen. So we just kind of go through, we get into this situation here, right? So we have all these moves, pawn, queen takes, pawn takes, e5 and all this stuff, right? Okay. So when we get to this point here, I want you to remember this position because it's going to look almost identical when I get to a certain point in that game. So like I said, this was the game, Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley So, 2019 out of Tata Steel, right? Okay. Now I'll be switching over here. Okay. So now we come to the game that they just got done playing a couple of days ago in round 3. Magnus Carlsen versus Hans Niemann. So, the game that everybody's been looking at is probably like, up there with like the applause game now. It's like super up there. So in the game, we had d4, we got knight to f6. So just kind of run through in the moves. We get into a Nimzo Indian. Something he talks about is transpositions and things like that. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit, but we do have the move g3. We got castles. We got bishop to g2. We got d5. We see a3, pawn takes c3, or bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3. Pawn takes c4, knight to f3, and then we do have c5. And this is a crucial stopping point. Because we started with this particular move order, and we got to this exact position here, and it is the Nimzo Indian defense Ramanishin Kasparov system. So remember this position here, and I will show you, we will get to it another way. So one of the main things in his second interview after round 5 that he was talking about was transpositions in chess. So he was saying that even, you get to the same position in multiple different ways. So just because he didn't go with the Nimzo Indian specific move order, you can still get there with a Catalan or just kind of switching the moves up and stuff like that. So as far as I know, I haven't looked at all the different possible transpositions. I know of 3 ways that you can get to this exact position. The way that I just got to it right now, that is one of the Nimzo Indian ways that you can get to it. There is another way that you can get to it, and it is after the move d5. You can actually play knight to f3 here instead of a3. And then if pawn takes c4, you have a3 now, which is like absolutely the top move. Bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, and then we do have c3. And so this is a second way that you can get to this exact same position. So if I back up again, those both were Nimzo Indian ways that you can get to that particular situation. But if we back up all the way pretty much to the beginning, and we have the move e6, you can go, and this is something I personally would do, like start going into Catalan, and you can actually get there that way as well, because bishop to b4 check will come. So if you do start off with the normal Catalan move order, which is knight to f3, you got d5, and then you have the move g3. So we're getting into Catalans, as you guys know. You can see the move bishop to b4 in this position, and then knight would come to c3. You got castles, you got bishop to g2, all of the standard moves that get us back to the position that we saw before. So as you guys can see, I just showed you 3 different ways that you can get to the, get to the same exact position. So his main thing that he was talking about was, the way that the position looks and the fact that you can get there from different move orders. So like people will say like, okay, he's never played the Nimzo Indian and played g3, but he has played the Catalan, and especially this game, he has went g3, bishop g2, because Magnus Carlsen is a pretty, in looking at the database that I just got done looking at for like all day, he's played the Catalan a lot. So, I mean, you can definitely, understand, especially if a3 is one of the main moves, you can definitely understand that this is a possible position that you can get into. So, as a pure theoretician that Hans Niemann seems to be like myself, you're literally going to study every single line that you can get to, especially the top 3 or 4 moves, because you have to know those, like 20, 25 deep, or however deep you want to go, however you feel like it's necessary. But getting back into the position that we had, because I do have to click. So this was another point that he was trying to make, right? So if we go back, knight to c3, you got bishop to b4, you got the move g3, right? Okay. Another thing that he did was he gave this variation in his first interview after round 3. He gave d5, bishop to g2, castles. You got knight to f3. You got pawn takes c4. You got castles. In this particular interview, he was saying that this was just a possible line that you can get into. He wasn't saying that, this is something that Magnus Carlsen played. He just said this was something that he was pretty much prepared for. He was going to go knight to c6. There's a queen to a4. You got knight to d5, queen back to c2, bishop back to e7, e4. Because as you guys know, with the Catalan, I tell you guys all the time that e4 is definitely a move that you want to get in. Knight c to b4. You got queen sliding over to e2, knight takes c3, pawn takes c3, and then the knight goes to d3. And black is slightly better. They're not like completely winning the game, but this is a really nice position because you literally have this knight. I mean, you might kind of have to give this rook up for it and get you a pawn and a knight for a rook or whatever. But this was something he was explaining that he was maybe possibly seeing in the game. So going back, after knight came to c3, like I said, we had all these moves, right? Okay, so we went forward from here in this interview, right? So we have castles, we got pawn takes d4, and we have come, like, it's not like a super crucial point, but, you have 2 different options in this particular position. You have knight takes d4, you also have pawn takes d4 or queen takes d4. Now, you guys know Magnus Carlsen is like, I mean, he's a pretty versatile guy, so he goes for like all these different lines. He for sure will take with the queen and then let you attack it and then move it to whatever square he wants to move it to. So in this particular situation, you can literally do any of those 3. Nothing else makes sense other than those 3. So he decides to go queen takes d4, and then a knight comes to c6, and then we do have queen takes c4. We got the move e5, and everything that I've mentioned up to this point is all completely mainline theory. We got bishop to g5, and we have the move h6, and we have come to a kind of a critical point. This was another of the things that he was talking about, that he had looked at this line literally just like earlier that day before he went to the the chess tournament, right? And so the crazy thing about it was, he was being attacked for like knowing all this. Like, how could you know that he was going to play all this? If he had never played g3 before. But when you understand the Catalan, like I said, these are all complete mainline moves in the Catalan. A3, the pawn takes c4, all of this stuff is mainline stuff. So this is stuff that has been seen before. Magnus Carlsen hasn't necessarily played this, but like I said, usually what you'll do, and this is something I understand being an opening person myself, that you can literally go look at an opening, get to a specific move, and you can just let the computer just run and spit you out all of the main moves, like 20 moves deep, if that's how far you want to go. Then you back up to a critical point, you pick another move, and then you let the computer just do the same thing, and you just literally keep doing it forever. And then you have all of this theory that you're memorizing and stuff like that. But of course, like I said, people don't like all of that. They're like, hey, man, I don't want you to be memorizing everything. Like, that's not chess. It's like, well, it's been chess since the beginning of time. So, I mean, you kind of got to get over it. They didn't have computers back in the day. So, you know, that's why. But anyways, in this position, Hans was saying this was something that he saw in his head because this is all completely mainline stuff. Bishop really kind of needs to take f6 here. Queen would be taking f6. You got knight down to d2. You got queen to e7. You got queen to b5, a6, queen to b6. And then you have bishop to g4. And then after that, of course, as I always say, that e2 pawn is very, very weak. So you have to kind of defend it somehow or push e3 or e4 or something like that to get rid of it, right? This position is going to become relevant because it looks very similar to the position that I showed you guys before, I believe. Let me see. Yes, you remember this bishop is here. So you have these two pawns here. So this is a position that Magnus Carlsen got into when he played Wesley So at Tata Steel. So, like, it makes more sense to think about this particular position. This is like almost identical to the position that we actually see like on the board that Hans Niemann like went to. So it's not like, so it's not like he just literally was like, oh, I'm just throwing random variations out there, or I mean, he stole preparation or anything like that. Like, he's actually using what Magnus Carlsen has already done before, just not quite in the way that people think he's doing it. Anyways, now at the end of the day, this is what I'm gonna have to say about Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen has never, like, specifically accused Hans Niemann of cheating. I will say that. But the thing about it is, what I understand as a content creator is we have a responsibility to the people that watch us, right? So, like, we want to make for super sure that if we have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million people watching our video, and I mean, you know, I wish I was in the million category. I'm not quite there. I'm a little fish. But anyways, when you do have that many people that are watching your video, you want to make sure that you're leading people in the right direction, that you're being like, you know, setting a good example, things like that. So the problem is, even though Magnus Carlsen did not specifically say that Hans Niemann was cheating, a lot of the people that follow him, which is like 500,000 or whatever, I think he has like 500,000 at least on YouTube, like, those people, a lot of those people are taking what he just did and what he's saying and the clip that he posted and all that stuff, like, to mean, I think Hans Niemann is cheating. So what I feel like he has a responsibility to do, he doesn't have to apologize or nothing like that. He needs to get on, he needs to say, hey, man, or just put a tweet or something out. Just say, hey, you know what? Like, I'm not insinuating that Hans Niemann is cheating. You know, I have some other stuff going on or something like that. So, you know, please don't think that he's doing that. If I was misunderstood in one of my videos and somebody made a comment or people started tweeting, like viraling everything, and, you know, they were going off on a tangent and it's like, oh, that's not even what I said, or that's not what I meant, I would get back on and do another video and I would try to grab all those people and make them come back like, hey, man, that's not what I meant. You know what I'm saying? Don't do this. It's the same thing I see Danya do. You know, it's like whenever he plays somebody and he gets like demolished from him, it's like, okay, come on, man. Like, how you just gonna beat, like, I literally can do nothing and you're like supposed to be a 1300. So yeah, he's gonna go through and he's gonna look at the engine and be like, all right, this person was actually cheating. I'm gonna submit a report. But before that point, everybody's like, oh, they cheated. It's like, well, let's give them a chance. So, you know, anyways, this was the line, like I said, that he had looked at. But in the game, after the move h6, Magnus Carlsen did go rook f to d1, which isn't a complete blunder, but it's just really, really good for black. So Hans was saying, oh, I know this is not right because bishop e6, and then you have all of these moves that come up in the position. And as you see, the king has to step over because that e2 square is weak, and you do want to move the king over, and then you want to play rook to d1. And then, I mean, we just get into all of this stuff that Niemann and Magnus Carlsen start to play. And we have this position here, and then we have the move g4, which actually makes Magnus Carlsen's position like super, super worse. And it's just simply because, you know, of course you're hoping for pawn takes g4, and then rook takes, and then, I mean, you're living a dream. Like, I mean, you're doing like way good. You got like weak pawns everywhere and stuff like that. But, you know, Niemann is not going to do that. So he decides to go rook to c5. And this really kind of displaces the bishop just a little bit. And so we do see this move, and then we just play some more moves. We keep playing moves, things like that. So, I mean, it's like a slow grind. I mean, you know, we're doing what we need to be doing. So, you know, we get to this position here, go back again. The knight goes to g5. We see bishop to f7, which does allow a really nice tactical shot. After the king comes down to f5, you do see rook taking, and then you do see this check right here. And then you pretty much get to the point where you just have way too many pawns going on. You got 4 pawns to 2. And I mean, even though you have a bishop in an open position, this is just not a good position to be in. So then you just keep having more moves. You're taking some pawns, but it's not going to matter because black has just taken all your pawns and they have 2 completely connected pass pawns on the king side. And so you're just doing what you can. After you see this move here, this is where Magnus Carlsen resigns the game. You know, this would be typically a really good setup against this knight if you didn't have any pawns on the board, or you just had like 1 pawn, or you could kind of stop things. But there is nothing that's going to be stopping these pawns from moving. This bishop has to move off the square now, and that's going to allow the knight to get free and start to get more influential in this situation over here. So as you guys know, that's just completely 100% lost. So like I was saying before, you know, everybody was talking to him about, you know, his preparation, and, you know, they're thinking like, okay, maybe he stole Magnus Carlsen's preparation. But it's like I just showed you guys, when you're playing a Catalan, I mean, you're looking at all of these lines that he just got done spitting out. And the more specific thing is, I went and I watched his interview. And the thing that you need to understand is, number one, the engine was not on. Whenever he was playing through his actual game, yeah, the engine was on. But when he started telling Alejandro these like sidelines that he was remembering from before, the engine wasn't on, number one. And number two, he was spitting out the moves like faster than they were even coming up on the screen. So for those people that were saying he was cheating, or like he just knew all this beforehand and stuff like that, it's like, that's just, I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying that because I literally study chess the same exact way he does, that it's very possible that he just literally is so verbose in all of these different lines that he just happened, you know, to look at a line that he probably was already kind of familiar with before, but then he just refreshed himself earlier before the game. And he probably looked at like hundreds of other variations. He probably was up all, like, you know, all night, like days before that, looking at all these different variations and stuff like that. So yeah, that's that. I think I covered everything. Did I? The main thing I didn't like about the interview with Alejandro, now, I mean, at the end of the day, Alejandro is a 2,600 plus grandmaster himself. So, I mean, very, very strong player. But the problem is, and I think it happens to everybody who uses computers, you know, you kind of get this thought in your mind that it's like, I know all the perfect stuff because I'm looking at the engine. And if you didn't play exactly that way, then you didn't play perfectly. But it's like, chess is between 2 human beings. So just in that game, Hans was just better than Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen didn't like play like his normal Magnus Carlsen game in that situation. So the thing I really didn't like about the interview was that Alejandro was constantly attacking Hans Niemann. You know, whenever he would make statements like, "Oh, I played perfectly," he said, "Well, you didn't play perfectly." It's like, okay, well, okay, so what? And it's like, I mean, when you do an interview with a human, you want to get like what's behind their mind frame. So that's why, like, when I do like analysis videos, I try to give, you know, you guys like maybe like, you know, kind of what the players were thinking, even though I'm not, you know, 2,600 myself, you know. But I mean, I kind of understand, like, you know, what they would be thinking in certain positions, and, you know, why they would have played into certain end games, things like that. I feel like, you know, they could have just let him speak. They could have let him say his piece about how he felt. And the funny thing is, when you watch Hans Niemann's interview, and you look at the interview that Alireza Firouzja did, they literally talk about the same stuff, just kind of mirror each other. So he said, "Oh, Queen G3 was an intuitive move. I just made it." And Alireza Firouzja was like, "I saw Queen to G3. It was just crazy. Like, and I just was really scared. I just wanted to make a draw and go home." And so, like, Hans Niemann really got in his mind, and he really studied his opponent really well. So, I mean, anything is possible. Like, anybody is capable of cheating. But it's like, my problem is, nobody has, like, given any plausible scenarios as to how he would have cheated. Like I said, they pretty much butt naked search him when they go in there. So, like, what is he bringing in there with him? Like, they took his gum the other day. I was like, why you take my man's gum? Like, I mean, I hope you gave it back. But anyway, that was that. Hopefully, I cleared up a lot of questions that some people had. And I hope I hit everything that I meant to hit. Probably going to find something I didn't hit later. But anyways, I appreciate you guys very much. Tusen tak. Maraming salamat, and I will see you guys next time.